If the words leaf mold make you picture something slimy, smelly, or diseased, you're not alone. For years, gardeners were taught to fear mold and clean every fallen leaf from their yards as if it were a problem to solve. But here's the truth: most gardening books gloss over. Leaf mold is not rot, not waste, and not a shortcut compost failure. It's actually one of the most powerful, low-effort soil builders nature has ever designed. At Soil Power, we care about practices that actually work in real gardens, not just on paper. Leaf mold is one of those rare tools that beginners can use immediately, and experienced gardeners can refine for decades. Let's clear the myths, break down the science, and show you how fallen leaves quietly turn into a soil supercharger. The first mistake most gardeners make is treating leaf mold like compost. Compost is a hot bacterial-driven process that breaks down a wide range of materials quickly. Leaf mold is the opposite. It's a slow, fungal-driven transformation that mimics how forest soils are built. In nature, trees drop leaves every year. Those leaves don't disappear in a few weeks. Fungi slowly colonize them, breaking down tough lignin and cellulose that bacteria struggle with. This process creates a crumbly, dark material that doesn't feed plants directly like fertilizer, but instead feeds the soil itself. That distinction matters. Leaf mold doesn't push fast growth. Instead, it builds structure, moisture balance, and biological resilience. In other words, it fixes the foundation of your soil instead of forcing the plants on top of it. Most garden advice is bacteria-focused: compost teas, nitrogen boosts, fast decomposition. It all centers on bacterial activity. But mature, stable soils depend heavily on fungi, especially in gardens with fruit trees, shrubs, and long-season crops. Leaf mold is one of the easiest ways to introduce and encourage fungal networks. As fungi spread through leaf mold-amended soil, they form microscopic threads that bind soil particles together. This creates aggregation, improving aeration, while also increasing water-holding capacity. That's why soil amended with leaf mold feels spongy, not muddy. It drains better during heavy rains and, holds moisture longer during droughts. This is not theory. It's actually why forest soils remain fertile without tilling, fertilizers, or irrigation. One of leaf mold's most underrated benefits is water management. A finished leaf mold can hold several times its weight in water, while still allowing excess to drain away. In hot or unpredictable climates, honestly, this is a game changer. When mixed into garden beds, leaf mold acts like a slow-release sponge. Roots can access moisture steadily instead of swinging between dry stress and waterlogging. This reduces plant shock, lowers irrigation needs, and, creates more consistent growth. Leaf mold doesn't come loaded with nutrients the way compost or manure does, and that's often seen as a downside. But in reality, it's actually one of its greatest strengths. By feeding fungi, microarthropods, earthworms, and beneficial microbes, leaf mold builds a living system that cycles nutrients instead of dumping them all at once. Worms pull it deeper into the soil, fungi transport nutrients to plant roots, and microbes unlock minerals already present in the ground. This creates long-term fertility rather than those short-lived growth spurts. Plants grown in leaf mold-rich soil often show stronger root systems, better disease resistance, and more balanced growth. Making leaf mold is surprisingly simple, but, patience is part of the process. Gather fallen leaves, preferably deciduous ones. Shred them if you can, since smaller pieces break down faster. Just pile them in a corner, a wire bin, or even heavy-duty bags with air holes. Moisture matters. Leaves should be damp, not soaked. Over time, fungi will colonize the pile, and the volume will slowly shrink. In about 6 to 12 months, you'll have partially broken down leaf mold. In 18 to 24 months, it becomes dark, crumbly, and sweet-smelling like forest soil. There's no need to turn it constantly. In fact, leaving it mostly undisturbed favors fungal dominance. This is slow gardening at its best. So, leaf mold is incredibly versatile. You can mix it into garden beds before planting to improve structure, which is honestly a great way to give your plants a head start. You can use it as mulch around vegetables, trees, and perennials. And you can also blend it into potting mixes to improve moisture retention without sacrificing drainage. For seedlings, leaf mold adds a certain gentleness. It doesn't burn roots or overwhelm young plants, which is super important. For mature gardens, it acts as a long-term soil conditioner that just keeps improving year after year. One of my favorite uses is layering leaf mold under compost or mulch. The compost feeds plants quickly, while the leaf mold builds soil slowly. Together, they really create balance. So, the biggest mistake folks make is expecting leaf mold to act like fertilizer. If you're looking for rapid growth, honestly, you'll be disappointed. Leaf mold works beneath the surface and its results really show over seasons, not days. Another mistake is letting it dry out completely during decomposition. Fungi need moisture to thrive, you know. Dry leaf piles can just sit unchanged for years, so keep them lightly damp and shaded. Finally, avoid mixing leaf mold into heavily tilled soil and then just walking away. Protect it with mulch and minimal disturbance, so those fungal networks can really establish and spread. So, modern gardening really shifted towards speed and convenience. Bagged fertilizers, quick composts, and instant results started to replace those slower systems that needed observation and patience. Leaf mold, well, it just didn't fit that model. But as gardeners face compacted soils, water stress, rising input costs, and declining yields, old solutions are becoming new again. Leaf mold isn't trendy, it's timeless. Once you start using it, you'll notice something subtle but profound. Your soil becomes easier to work, your plants become more resilient, and your garden begins to behave more like a living ecosystem than a feeding schedule. At Soil Power, we believe real fertility starts underground. Leaf mold isn't flashy, but it's foundational. It's how forests thrive without fertilizers, and it's how home gardens can move from constant fixing to long-term abundance. If this article changed how you see fallen leaves, don't stop here. Subscribe to the Soil Power channel for deeper dives into soil biology, forgotten techniques, and practical methods you can use right away. Share this with a fellow gardener who still bags their leaves every fall. And help bring this soil supercharger back where it belongs.